Steve McAllister of Yahoo Sports Canada is joining us on the line, and he's been following this story as it's gone along. Steve, been a long time. Good to have you on the show.
Hi, Donovan.
So what's your take on because it seems like the story is going to come to a head where the interested parties are going to have to declare themselves in the next little while. What's your feeling on where the Bills will be, say, in 10 to 15 years?
Boy, it's a tough one, Tim. The one thing I will say is I definitely don't think, even as ironclad as that deal is, aside from the 2020 date that you mentioned, I certainly don't think it's a slam dunk that the team's going to stay in Buffalo. There's some serious issues around the stadium. They absolutely need to have a new stadium. I'm not unconvinced that the NFL wouldn't like to have a team in Canada. And at the end of the day, money's going to talk. And as you said, Tim, $28 million to exploit that loophole is petty cash in today's world of sports. And so I think, like, anybody that tells you right now that they know for sure that the Bills are going to be in Buffalo 10 years from now is a liar.
I know that Buffalo's just clinging to this because, they're that small town done wrong. I think that Toronto for them could be the best case scenario, but I'm not as convinced that the NFL wants Canada. Why do you think the NFL wants Canada or wouldn't mind Canada?
Well, I'm not even sure, Tim, if it's two things. One, I think going from a small market, a real small market like Buffalo to a bigger market like Toronto makes sense. You're in a bigger market. Also gives you a chance to grow the brand a little bit more internationally. Although, that said, there's awful lot of interest, as you two guys know, with the NFL in Canada right now across the country, and so that probably wouldn't have a major impact financially on the NFL. But yeah, I think if it's a choice, if the NFL had if it was a coin flip on whether they'd like to be in Buffalo or Toronto, I think Toronto's a more attractive alternative.
Yeah. If in fact they were to come to Canada, do you think, and this is a conversation DJ and I have had extended, pretty hardcore debates off the air on, do you think the CFL exists in Canada if the NFL makes its way here?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. Tim, if you look at the CFL in Toronto right now, just in Toronto alone, it's not like the Argos have 30,000 season ticket holders and are selling 45,000 tickets a game. And I think if the Bills came to Toronto, you would still get the 15 to 20,000 people that come and watch Argo games. We're talking 9 home games a year plus a couple of playoff games and a preseason game. I still think there's a very loyal fan base in Hamilton. I think Ottawa, with Jeff Hunt running the ownership team there now, that they're in for the long haul. And the CFL is still, as you know, Tim, very, very strong in the West.
Yeah.
So I really don't see the NFL coming to Canada being the death knell for the CFL.
What about some of those corporate sponsors, though, that are spending their money on the CFL, specifically in Toronto? Is Arona interested in the CFL if there's an NFL team here?
I think there are, Donovan. Again, it's two different price points. It's kind of like it'd be like running, having a CFL sponsorship program and maybe running a sponsorship program in the GTA for a high school championship series, or sponsoring the Grey Cup and sponsoring the Vanier Cup. You're talking two different price points. So if you're a heavy hitter, you look at a Scotiabank and what they've done in hockey, they're probably going to be willing to invest a lot of money in an NFL franchise. Someone like a TD Bank or a CIBC, they might like to step up and do something with the CFL because it connects right across the country.
You mentioned how the NFL may be desirous to have a team in Canada and spread its wings a bit. When you look at the market in LA, specifically the way the league makes its money with national TV rights and national sponsorship deals, does it make more sense for them to have a team in a big market in LA rather than across the border where a lot of their sponsorship money wouldn't necessarily be seen?
I would agree with that. I think if having an NFL team back in Los Angeles. So I've talked to people. The Yahoo Sports operation is based in Santa Monica. So I've talked to people out there and said that the NFL isn't that concerned about having a team back in LA because the television ratings are so strong out there. But still, you can't discount the fact that you've got a big population base out there, and having a team in Los Angeles is going to drive an awful lot of revenue in other areas. So being out there wouldn't be a bad thing. And again, if it came down to do we want to be in Toronto or do we want to be in LA, I think LA is a better option.
It's just whether or not they can pull that off. The one thing I'll say about that, too, the corporate sponsorship dollars is you watch an NFL broadcast and you could count on one hand the products that are advertised that aren't available in Canada. The vast majority of their national sponsors are multinational companies. Maybe like even Papa John's you can get in some spots. You know what I mean? Like most of those companies are now multinationals that are all available in Canada.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, as I mentioned, I think there are obviously different levels of sponsorships depending on the size of the event, obviously the television contracts. And I do think even if the NFL does come to Canada, there's still going to be sponsors out there who are going to want to hitch their wagon to the Canadian Football League. Steve
McAllister, the managing editor of Yahoo Canada, joining us on the line. The one other question that I had for you surrounded our conversation with Mark Cohan a couple of weeks ago. And I may have been looking into it too much, but it seemed to me like he would like nothing better than for MLSE to buy the Toronto Argonauts and make room for them at BMO. If that were the case, and John Bon Jovi's group, who happens to include members of the Rogers family and Larry Tannenbaum, who kind of know MLSE a little bit, is that the best case scenario for the CFL, that MLSE steps in and then there's a partnership if the NFL were to come to Canada?
I'd say, Tim, that's the best option for all the parties involved. In a perfect world, MLSE would own the Argos. They would move to BMO. The Bon Jovi group would build a brand new football stadium in Toronto to house an NFL team. And I think everybody could live happily ever after and under that in that scenario. I think with the Argos, and I was thinking about this when I spoke with Jeff earlier off air, is that the real sticking point with the Argos is where do you play 10 to 15 years down the road? And I think that may be a bigger issue around the future of the Argos than the threat of an NFL team coming here.
Yeah, I agree. But if MLSE, and it's a conversation DJ and I have had too, is if MLSE takes on the Argos, is it a lost leader? Is it so that they don't look bad in front of the eyes this is. Look around Canada. We don't have many national pro sports leagues, right? Like there's a basketball league, a fledgling basketball league in the CFL, and that's it. Those are the only things in Canada that are pro sports leagues.
Yeah, and I think, Tim, that you can make that MLSE can make the Argos work. As we've seen with places like Edmonton and Calgary, where it's the same ownership group, now that owns the Flames and owns the Stampeders and the lacrosse team, and that you get into owning a soccer team in those places, and what Ottawa's doing with the Red Blacks and the 67s and the Ottawa Fury. You can combine your ticket departments and your marketing departments, and the economy of scales work pretty well under that kind of an ownership structure. And again, I just think the CFL is going to be a tough sell in this city. The one concern I've always had with David Braley owning CFL teams is I don't think he's been aggressive enough in marketing those franchises. And although God bless the guy for owning two teams in the CFL, but I think with MLSE running the Argos, it really ensures long-term stability. And again, I covered the CFL way back in 1989, and people said the league was going to die back then, and I really do believe the league's here to stay.
Always appreciate the conversation. It's been too long between them.
Yeah, my pleasure, Tim. You too, DJ.
There is Steve McAllister.